quarter after.
Yeah, we need the clerk to be ready. Are you good?
I'm ready. Go.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Select Board meeting for Tuesday, January 20th. We're going to call the meeting to order. First, we'll take a motion to go in executive session, from which we will be coming back to public session at its conclusion, but no earlier than 6:15. So, Mark?
Mr. Chair, I move we go into executive session for A, pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel, Fire Chief David LeBlanc. B, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, 21A3, excuse me, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, HEA, Harwich Employees Association. C, pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel, town administrator. And D, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the HEA, Harwich Employees Association, and litigation with the HEA, DLR case number MUP-24-10888, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the open body, and the chair so declares.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. There will be a little discussion because of my being an alumni from the federal government. I had promised myself I would never continue to use acronyms, so DLR stands for?
Department of Labor Relations.
Thank you so much. With that, all in favor? Anita?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. We will return no sooner than 6:15. Okay, I'd like to welcome us all back to the open session. Previously, we had called to order at 5:15 and went into executive session. There's nothing at the moment to report on any of the actions within that. So having stated that, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ricky, any staff comments or announcements?
Good evening, Emily Mitchell, Town Clerk. Just the briefest of announcements. I was before you last week to say that we were tentatively hoping to release nomination papers for the 2026 annual town election today, January 20th. So I'm here to happily report we were successful. It is now a firm date. We did release nomination papers today for all of the offices that will appear on the 2026 annual town election ballot. They are available until March 27th. That is the deadline for any interested candidates to pull papers. So from today through March 27.
And it's for the public to know, because these numbers actually move depending on registered voters. How many names do they need to get at a minimum to satisfy the nominating papers?
Absolutely, thank you. For all offices, candidates need to collect 50 valid signatures, 50 valid signatures from registered Harwich voters in order to appear on the ballot.
Terrific, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other staff? All right, we'll move on then. Weekly briefing.
Okay, so just as related to Phase 3 sewer in the east, they finished up the section between Church Street and Bay Road, and now they're working from Bay Road to Bova Cove, as well as the little triangle there at Church Street and 39 where the pump station is going. So that's their current effort over the next few weeks. Over on the west side, they're still working on the Chestnut Street pump station and Pleasant Bay Road West. So Nothing real new on Phase 3A, other than the next major milestone we're tracking is getting a permission to advertise from Mass DOT. So as soon as that happens, I'll make sure everybody knows, but that's kind of the next milestone we're tracking for 3A. Brooks Academy Museum, they were here last week doing all their assessments, so they took a number of samples of different things, looking at the elevator and, or lift, or whatever they call it there, and now they're gonna take all of that data to put together the plan of action of what needs to be done. So hopefully, once they have a chance to do that, we should get an updated schedule, once they know what the extent of the work that needs to be accomplished, so.
And to that point, are you okay if we get informally together the same people who actually drove this into some sort of success? Like sitting down with Sean and the tenants to see what could conceivably be possible for the next 6 months with that, or are we going to totally close? Or I'd like to have them have that discussion.
Yeah, I think having the discussion is fine. What we have to be careful of is any, direction given to the town's architect, right? So
I'm not
we
talking
just-
about that, I'm just talking about what could be possible in whatever scenarios that they're talking about.
Yeah, and I've seen some of that. I forget the gentleman's name. I don't know if he's the chair of the museum committee. Has been in contact with Sean about setting up a meeting, so I don't know if that's the
I
same
want you
one.
to know about it, though.
Oh, I do. I
Okay.
do. I don't know what the date is they're getting together, but they are, I was CC'd on those emails.
Well, for the public, nobody knows what they don't know, and we're at that point right now, but I'd like everybody to have some sort of understanding about what we're trying to do.
Sure.
Any questions from Town Minister?
Nope.
All righty then. We have Brendan Lowney and Richard Waystack representing the weighty responsibility of being the public. So we're at public comments. So does the public have anything to say? All right, we're good, rolling. Consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the Select Board meeting minutes from January 12th, 2026.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any changes, observations, comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I move we vote to approve the following committee.
Let me ask you to split off number one. I have a couple of questions about Mr. Siegel. I really need to address to Mr. Handler, so I'm just asking, not to table it, but just to push it to the next week's agenda so I can ask those questions, and we'll put it on that as a recommendation from the interview committee.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I move we vote to approve the following committee appointment as recommended by the interview committee. Lynn Zalesek,
Zalasek.
Community Preservation Committee as the Historic District and Historical Commission Representative, full member, term to expire June 30th, 2026. And Sheila House, Community Center Facilities as the Council on Aging Representative, full member, term to expire June 30th, 2028.
At the recommendation of the interview committee.
At the recommendation of the interview committee.
Second.
So moved and seconded for the two appointments. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous.
Mr. Chair, we move, we approve the resignation of Glenn Mimic on the Harwich Energy and Climate Action Committee and as the CVEC representative effective immediately.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept Glenn's resignation from both the Harwich Energy and Climate Action Committee and CVEC, where he's our representative. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the resignation of Janet Cassidy on the Brooks Academy Museum Commission effective immediately.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. That kind of was a moving part, just so everybody knows they are still above their quorum with the resignation, so that we're not putting anything in peril at the moment. So with that, any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I move we vote to accept a gift for the Council on Aging Department, from the Friends of Harwich Council on Aging, FHCOA, in the amount of $9,325 to be used to support programming.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to accept a gift from the Friends of the Harwich Council on Aging. Any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Mr. Chair,
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Richard.
just if you had any
Yeah, for the
questions on that money being used, I just will point out, it's for issues with elderly. In some cases, we have safety issues, fixing a water heater, a furnace that may be necessary. We have a medical driver program, but there are times that a medical driver may not be available. So at that times, we will pay to have people go to their medical appointments. And home safety, one of the most important things for seniors is grab bars, safety bars throughout the house. So that money is voted ahead of time. As those needs become available, we have the money. It's not budgeted. We have the money available to assist our seniors.
Yeah, good. Don't go anywhere.
No, sir.
Since you brought this up, and you're the right person to bring it up in front of, it's not a conflict of interest thing. It's just, I'm involved with Sight Loss Services. We happen to have funding from Elder Services and from the Eddy Foundation to take people to medical appointments that pertain to eyes, where they need somebody who has to be medically assisting them. They can't just drive themselves. So just know that that's out there too, so that you don't have to use this money in that area.
Absolutely. We will make sure. I'm pretty sure that
Pretty
the
sure she
director's
knows, but I just
available,
want-
but if not, we'll bring it to their attention. But there's so many of these smaller things that come up, and we want to have the funding available so that we don't have to go to a board meeting, to go to a friend's meeting to say, we need this fund. It's not in the budget to do it, but if someone's vulnerable, especially in this weather, if a heater goes, we want to be able to assist the senior in getting a heating system replaced. But I will make sure that I speak to Ms. Wittes tomorrow, Mrs. Groom, to discuss the Elder Services grant. Thank you.
No, it's not Elder Services, Sight Loss Services.
Sight Loss Services. Thank you. I will do so.
Thank you for that. All righty. So, moving along to the update.
Vote on that?
We've got it.
Oh, forgot. Yeah. So much money involved. Okay, any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Now, update on the annual town meeting budget timeline and the budget timeline.
Everything is still on track. Just, again, another public service announcement. The warrant is currently open for submission of articles. Closes on February the 2nd. And then all written articles, final form of articles are due on February 13th. The Finance Committee has issued their public hearing notice to review the capital FY 27 to 31 capital plan and capital budget. That's scheduled for February the 12th, which I believe is a Thursday, at 6 p.m., but that public hearing notice has been issued. We will be getting a presentation on Monday, the 26th, on the draft Monomoy Regional School District budget, so they'll be here on Monday. That's obviously quite a bit earlier than we've had it in the past. I think we know there's going to be a lot of discussion around the school budget, so they're coming in early to get that conversation going. And I currently have the Cape Cod Regional Technical High School coming in on February 23rd at the request of Superintendent Sanborn to give their presentation to the board. The update on the timeline?
Chair, I have one question.
Yeah.
Yes.
If I may ask, I know there was some question about 4 articles for zoning changes, about that making it onto the warrant. I think you did answer somebody. Could you just elaborate on that? These
So
are
the
four
most-
zoning changes that Duncan Berry had brought before us.
And Brian.
Right, so I have a meeting set up tomorrow with the planning department. So right now on the tracker, there's already a number of zoning changes that are in the works. So tomorrow I'll be talking to them about the additional of these 4 additional articles. I don't know too much about them in terms of where they are in terms of their form, and, you know, what's required of that to make those zoning changes, but we're gonna have that discussion tomorrow morning, so.
Okay, and Duncan, I have it here somewhere. Duncan did give us a sheet of paper with the 4 things.
And he did, and he sent it to me as well.
Okay, so you've
Yep.
got that,
I
okay.
had asked him to, because I don't think I got a copy of that, so he emailed that to me, I think, the end of last week, or sometime last week, so.
Before we leave that subject, because I'm not sure if the public's entirely clear on this, one of the asks that Duncan has, the public needs to understand the implications of, because we fling words around like use-based, form-based, and everything. To parse that down into what it really, and it's doing, his ask is for nothing more than get a consultant, because it's a complex thing that has to be, we have to basically wipe out everything we're done and start over again. Just so everybody understands what that means, if you're in an area that's retail, then you'd qualify it by right to do anything that retail would have within certain parameters, but you have the right to do that. Form-based starts talking about what fits in your neighborhood. What form does it take that, maybe it's egregiously big or something that's odd, and that's actually a sleeper issue here for the town. With all the other stuff that's going on, that seems to be the hot button thing, is how come we can't determine what we want, where we want it? And that's actually happening behind the scenes right now, as an ask. Secondly, as a general thought, and I know what I'm telling people, don't be fooled by these deadlines, because you don't want to put an article in by petition, say, that you know for a fact has a defect in it, and you wait until the day before and just throw it in there. The deadline is only a problem. The major problem is do it early and do it right. So if you're thinking about doing something, make sure that somebody who knows how these things work looks it over so that we don't lose that time. So those are just major comments.
All right.
You're up again.
Which one's this one? Draft articles?
Yeah.
Okay, so we started putting the draft article list, which is what we're currently tracking for the warrant. We are starting to populate your packet with the actual warrant articles so the board can vote to place them. We also will then send them to legal counsel for legal review to make sure all the language is correct, appropriate, and legally sufficient. What's in your packet tonight for consideration of what we call the customary articles. These articles go in every year. The language either doesn't change at all, you simply update the dates, and we see these year over year. So you have C1 through 6, which is our numbering system, C being for customary. And so I don't know if the board has any questions on these or wants to consider placing these so we can start to pick away and do this in a logical, stepped manner, make it, I think, a little bit easier in terms of putting the final warrant together instead of trying to do them all at one time. So I don't know if everybody had a chance to review the customary articles, but.
I just have one question, Tony. The freight expenses of Chase and Harwichport Library, it's always been the same amount, $20,000? I don't know too much about it, but it's been that amount for as long as I can remember, and their expenses has probably gone up a little bit. So I don't know if that can go up a little bit to reflect inflation or something like that. I'm not even saying this year, but to anticipate it even next year. It just seems that it's been level, and to defray expenses, it would seem to be something we can consider.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Isn't that an ask, though?
I believe so. So I don't know all the back, because obviously this is my first time looking at these.
Me too.
And again, it may be an ask. Remember, we fund these with free cash, right? So when we look at the capital budget, you see the amount we're using for free cash, but in your book, you'll see a separate tracker that adds up all the different, uses of free cash. I probably would maybe hold back a little bit this year. Just, again, we're gonna have a lot more decisions that we're gonna have to make as some new information starts to roll in with, the school district budgets. Healthcare is an area that we're looking really closely at, and whether we need to consider upping our estimates on that as information becomes available, try to get out in front of some of that. But, so I don't know the history per se, but in terms of why it's always been the same, but.
And so that the public gets the second half of this discussion, we benefit from this because under the CLAM system and book circulation, we get to take credit for what goes on in both of those libraries at the state level for certifications. So it's money that is well spent because Brooks Free Library gets something out of it.
Yeah, and I'll find out whether, this is something that they ask for every year. In other words, we just want 20 grand, or whether, I suppose like anything else, if you offer more, they'd probably be receptive to that. But, so it's really a board decision about, how you want to, go with that. But that's, I can try to get a little bit more background, but.
Given where we're at, if anybody wants to, because this is a two-step process, we have to place them first, and then later on vote to support or not support them consequent to that. If you want to start taking some actions for things that you're going to do, even if there might be a minor difference later, now's the time to start clearing the deck so that we can talk about the things we really want to talk about. So a motion would be in order to accept and place. Whatever you'd like.
Accept in place?
Or adopt. We're not adopting because
Right.
we haven't approved
Right,
anything.
right. So my question to you, Mr. Chair, is can we just go off the header, or do you need me to read the article?
I think at this point, because we're not talking about
We can go off the header?
voting endorsing anything, we can go off of that so that he knows that they're on there as a place
Gotcha.
setter.
All right, so there's 6 customary articles. Does any member of the board wish for me to remove any of them before I make my motion? Excellent. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we place the following customary articles: town officers and committees, report of town officers and committees, lease purchase agreements, defray expense, Chase and Harwich Port Library, supplement cultural council, and the herring fisheries articles.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to place these articles on the 2026 annual town meeting warrant. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Any of these others mature enough where you want to discuss them, or you just want to leave it at that right this second?
I think leaving it at that right now is, yeah, because we'll put the actual wording of the article in for,
And you have my eternal gratitude for naming these C1, C2, C3, because in prior years, we assigned them article numbers. And it was, where's Waldo for warrants? Nobody could figure out what they were when we started pulling things, and thank you.
this was Natasha's work, so she does a great job, very organized.
But it was a deft way of getting out from under the chaos. Okay. All right, so under new business, we have a discussion and possible vote of the town administrator contract. We have previously, in executive session, come to a meeting of the minds and terms and voted this. I want to actually ratify that action right now in public so that everybody understands that that's where we're at right now. So I'd accept a motion to ratify the contract approval between J.E. James McGrail and the town of Harwich for a 3-year contract.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
I'd actually like to poll the board, so everybody's name is on this. So Pete,
Aye.
Anita,
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So it's a vote, it's unanimous, and we're grateful for that. We're also grateful for the continued presence of Tony. None of this would have been possible if we hadn't had a steady leadership for the last 6 months. So all good things for the town. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, just real briefly, not to take up any time, but, I had the pleasure of working with Jay on this, and Jay was just as eager to get this contract in place and ratified by us as we were to get it in place. So I'd like to thank Jay for his cooperation and his willingness to, have some back and forth, and I'm pleased that we're able to get this thing wrapped up in a timely manner.
And in no small measure, because of you, and on behalf of the board, I'd like to thank you for your efforts. This was very quick. I've seen these things drag out forever, and you start creating unanticipated consequences with stuff like that. It was all done in good faith, and it was really well done. So thanks on our behalf.
Well, thank you, but expediency probably has more credit to Tony than to me, so I thank Tony for his efforts as well.
Yeah, but I don't think anybody understands how extraordinarily quick this all came together. So, again, all good stuff for Harwich. Discussion and update on the fiscal 2027 budget.
So, the way we originally, set this up, obviously, was to provide the board an opportunity over the course of the next, 3 meetings, more if necessary, but at least over the next 3 meetings to determine, what direction the board wanted to go to with the draft budget that was presented last week in terms of areas that you wanted more information on, whether you needed department heads in here to talk about their budgets, or any of the other, aspects of the budget that you felt needed discussion. Certainly, we went into this with, more or less an essentially level expense budget, no added staff, So not a lot of moving parts as it relates to departmental budgets from, a monetary, standpoint. Obviously, one of the big, drivers in the budget, obviously, we settled 7 of 8, union contracts over the course of the last, 6 months or so. So those are obviously rolled into the budget with the new, rates for each of the union contracts. And areas that we're looking at, obviously, if you remember last week, the sort of the stressors and constraints part of the budget is what Jen and I are spending a lot of our time on in terms of continuing to dive in and analyze, potential additional increases in health insurance, some of those areas that we don't necessarily have control over. The school budget, the school committee met last week. They voted their draft initial budget, and again, we'll be here on the 26th to present that in a little bit more detail. I don't think it's any surprise that the budget assessment for Harwich at this point is significantly above what we programmed in the budget that was presented last week. So it is their first draft. In their letter, they did, articulate they're going to continue to work to refine that number down to some degree, and then we'll have to figure out how we make up the difference or where we go as it relates to that. So just on the budget in general, I guess we're here to answer any questions or areas you want us to be ready to bring back. If it requires us to do a little bit of analysis and study, we're just looking for direction from the board, prior to the board voting to transfer the budget over to the finance committee, hopefully in early February.
Currently, I don't have any questions with me this evening. I think I have a few questions that I'd like to present to you folks, and perhaps I can email them sometime this week so we can address them next week. But again, nothing heavy, because as you said, as to what you already said, Tony, there's not a lot of extra in that budget. It is pretty, service level oriented, and there's not a lot that we can dissect. But again, with that said, I'll be interested to see what the budget looks like as some real numbers start to come in. And what I mean is those unknowns, right? For not only the town, but for the school. And I was very pleased with the letter we received from the school, that they understand the financial situation that both towns are in, quite frankly, and that they're willing to continue to work on their numbers and hopefully, drive them down a little bit more. I suspect in the end, there's still going to be a gap, as you alluded to, and we'll have to figure out how we close that gap or address that issue. But overall, I think what you folks presented last week was tremendous. It was detailed, and it gave us a pretty clear picture of where we stand for the known numbers. And again, we'll address that as we go on, but I'll be quiet now and just reiterate that I'll send you a couple questions that you folks can either shoot back to me or we can address next week.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, do you have anything you want to add, anything we need to bring up? Okay. So I think one other aspect maybe to take a look at for future discussion, just our use of free cash, right? So I mentioned earlier, obviously, we're using a significant portion for our capital plan, which we'll get to after this. But you'll see there's a laundry list, I'll call it, of other, uses of free cash. Some of them are customary. Some of them were things we moved out of the operating budget, like the OPEB, which, again, those are typically funded through free cash in a warrant article from my experience, I think, for most towns. So if you have a chance, take a look at that. If there's any questions about that, we can obviously answer those as well when the time is, appropriate, and we'll be happy to do that as well, so.
Tony, just for the board's sake, I sent you an email today. I asked about the expenses for 204.
Yep.
Because I didn't see it in the budget. You did give me an answer, maybe just for the board's sake, and because I forgot the terminology. Just
Sure.
go over it.
Yeah, so for the 204 Cultural Center, so that's a building, right? So that expenses for that, based on the town meeting vote that happened, I think, in 2022, which allocated the use of the revolving fund for the Cultural Center for the funding, the care, the maintenance, and the support of the building are the authorized uses of the revolving fund, which goes to pay the, I'll say, the core expenses of the building. Now, the cultural department, right, Cultural Affairs Department, budget is in the book as it relates to, obviously the salary of our one FTE for that, and then just, I'll say, expenses related to just running the office and that piece of it versus the building envelope itself, heat, electricity, upkeep and maintenance, right? Those are all part of the revolving fund authorized use by town meeting. We are trying to take a dive into revolving funds in general. Jen has been doing a great deal of work. Some of this goes to the history, right, and understanding where the revolving funds, how they were created, what their authorized uses were, the spending caps, right? Those are part of the town meeting vote. You'll see in the town meeting warrant for this year, somehow it dropped off in the last couple of years, but my understanding is it's a requirement that each time we put those in the warrant with the spending cap is also what are the authorized uses for each of those revolving funds. Probably no surprise as we go in and dig into this a little bit. I think there's, in the past, has been some accounting things that are, we need to tighten up on in terms of that. So we're trying to put the whole picture together. I know there's a lot of interest in this, both on the board and I think in the finance committee too, and Jen's been doing a lot of research, making sure that policy and procedure-wise, and really in a lot of our financial systems, are appropriate, they're all-encompassing, right, to make sure that everything we do is not just best practice-based, but also legally based in terms of how we do that. And so we're trying to get the whole picture of that, so when we do present it, it's not piecemeal, it really will give the board kind of the full view of each of the revolving funds, how they're being used, what they're authorized to be used for, and making sure that we have the right accounting controls around each of those revolving funds. And so that's, it's a big effort. And, we just had another meeting on it today for almost 2 hours. Again, just trying to make sure that we understand it so we can give the right direction to those departments that have revolving funds. Arguably, I think there's going to be some that we can probably do away with that don't really get a lot of use or activity. I don't know if we had 17 or 14. There's a lot. But they are a useful tool, and we just want to make sure that we're utilizing those revolving funds in the right manner that's comports with the law and everything else. So that takes a little bit of study. We don't want to do it, sort of haphazardly. So hopefully that answers that. But that's why it's not in the book. So and that revolving fund and those expenses actually go through the facilities department handles all those.
I think Jen wanted to say that.
I was just going to add, if I may, Mr. Chair, that to Tony's point, these are a very important tool. They're actually, when well managed, they're very good to utilize. So I'd love to get to a point, and I know it's going to be someday, right, when we iron out all the wrinkles here and move forward where, revolving funds isn't such a scary word, and maybe someday we even have more or others that operate things better than they are now. Currently. So just a side note.
And I think along those lines, speaking especially for myself, or only for myself, I should say, I'm not necessarily looking to eliminate. Now, if there are some that could or should be eliminated, fine. I think we eliminated one last year at town meeting that no longer served the purpose. But once you complete your exercise, which I think is a great exercise, we can then determine, are the spending limits the correct limits, right?
Yes.
Are all the uses, should they be there? Because perhaps, although they're allowed to be there, maybe some should come out, maybe others should go in, we don't know that, but once that exercise is complete, I think it's gonna really help us as a board digest it and then kind of set the policy on it to bring back to town meeting. So I think that is a great exercise, I appreciate going through that exercise, and I think it will shed a lot of clarity for all of us.
Yeah, and I think on the, the spending cap, we've learning as we go along about making sure that our accounting controls match how you're supposed to, track the expense part of that in terms of what that cap is. And it really is, it's just expenses. There's no other offsets from revenue. It's just, if it's $300,000, you can spend up to $300,000. And that's a hard, a hard stop. So we just sent an email out to the department, or Jen did, today, just to start to get the departments that have revolving funds, making sure they understand those rules and those laws around how you calculate expense.
And I assume that, if I could,
Yeah,
Mr. Chair,
go.
I assume that Munis system, I shouldn't say that Munis system, the Munis system allows them, the department heads to track it as it goes?
Absolutely. I mean, they can run reporting to see where that stands quite easily. But we can also go further, a step further, in accounting and finance. We can create backstops, basically, the end, like you hit this number and you're done.
Yeah,
Like,
okay.
it won't approve anything else to go
Gotcha.
forward. So we can create systematic controls in addition to department head and accounting controls.
Yeah, nice.
So those are part of those internal controls,
Yeah.
right, that
Yeah.
probably don't exist right now,
No.
that we need to
Sure, no, which would be
put into
great.
place, right? I mean, that's our core, function financially, is to make sure
Yeah.
we have those internal controls and the backstops and secondary stops to make sure everything happens the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd say, if I could continue, like you mentioned a $300,000 spending cap. Fine, I don't care what the number is, but if we see historically the department's only bringing in $50,000 a year, well, maybe we want to look at that 300,000 and say, why the hell do we have 300,000 when they're not bringing that kind of revenue in? So those are the types of things I think will weed out once you finish this exercise,
bet.
which will be very beneficial.
Yep.
So, great, appreciate it.
It's not often I get to the right conservatively about the finances, than Mr. Pekarsky, but my major objection was, in addition to all of that, audit controls, I mean, within it, it's like, who authorized it, who received it, how do we spot check to make sure it's actually happening correctly? Because there's been a kind of mentality where it's our money was a leading discussion for a lot of departments, and it's the townspeople's money, really.
Correct. Yeah.
So I totally agree with where the discussion is going to a monetary need, but it also boils down to, we need to assure everybody that the transaction can't be brought from the beginning to the end with just one person involved. But
That's the separation of duties that are important.
yeah, and I know you guys are looking at that, so that would satisfy me if you start looking at how that works. Okay. Oh, we're going to talk about the capital plan itself then?
Yeah, mostly the capital budget. So there are two parts to this. We developed the 5-year capital plan. We had a great presentation from the chair of the Capital Outlay Committee and myself a while back. So there's the plan, which goes to town meeting, and they accept the plan. And then second to that, which the Capital Outlay Committee doesn't really weigh in on, is the FY27 capital budget. In other words, the funding plan for those projects that make it into the final plan for the next, fiscal year. So that becomes the capital budget. So as part of that, I sit down and come up with what I call the funding profile. Right now, there's a total of $7,663,500 in the overall capital budget for FY27. So a number of the projects you can see listed that are proposed to come out of free cash for a total of $2.47 million and some change. $700,000 for the road improvement fund and DPW and general debt. Just over $2 million in proposed excluded debt. We have some that come out of waterways funds to support what they're doing out of harbor. A little over $1 million in enterprise fund retained earnings, and then some what I call other funding. And for this particular year, that's made up of some funding coming out of the sinking fund, which we have, and then the repurposing of prior capital projects that have been completed and still have funding left in
Can we
them.
back up to, in English, the sinking fund is for the public?
So it's let me see if I can do this right, because no. It's a receipts reserve fund basically from land sales, right, that can then be turned around and reused.
I just
So,
wanted everybody to know where it came from.
yes, and it's been in prior town meetings, the use of the sinking fund for various.
We've used the words, I'm not sure everybody knows.
And to touch on that, though, if I recall, there are times when we have gone to town meeting and said that the monies acquired would be essentially land for land, right? If we sold land, we're gonna use those funds for future land. Do you folks have that understanding?
He's right, that's one of the subordinate promises we've made.
Yeah, my understanding, the authorized uses of the sinking fund can go to, right, we talked about this in our meeting, was capital, right, projects,
And I'm
right?
not saying every article that would go on the town meeting has that language, but I know several had the language, it would be land for land. So I don't know if that's something we need to scrutinize in greater detail.
In terms of what, researching whether we can use the sinking fund for this particular capital? Okay. I
Kind of
think
a
we-
minor bait and switch conversations, like we said, we were going to do land for land. We'd like to be able to say to everybody, we did land for land.
Okay.
Yeah, not everything, but there were 3 promises made, actually, and that was one of them, but another promise was, we're not doing this as an opportunity to make more developable land show up, because that wasn't really the agenda that we were trying to drive. So to inadvertently pay for that privilege to be consumptive is also a discussion, because the other way, we're trading land for land.
And for example, I think the Queen Anne properties last town meeting were land for land. Again, I could
I
be
thought
wrong.
that went into that other fund that was doing either the research or whatever. I thought that was the Queen Anne property that went into that other, it had about 490,000, I think, in it.
Which is fine too, and we need another discussion.
That's not the
We're gonna need a
sinking fund, that's a
discussion with the
different one.
assessors, because this is a different board. And the question is, what do we think our driving factors are and what our marching orders are? Because it's time to refresh what we're saying, since almost everybody's different than it was 2 or 3 years ago when that conversation started. I know that the assessors are working on stuff, so it's probably a good idea to just bring everybody together and have that conversation.
I'm not opposed to using for capital if it's appropriate, but I just, if we obviously told the townspeople land for land on certain funds, and maybe it's not this second fund you're talking about, then we just need to investigate that a little bit more to make sure.
Yeah, I think it might be different. I think what we looked at was just the definition around they call it a sinking fund, but there's another name to it, and it's a receipt reserved, and this would be an authorized, but if town meeting voted something different, we
Correct.
didn't know about that.
Right,
so,
exactly.
Any idea when that might have been?
Well,
In
again,
the course of time, actually, it wasn't more than one meeting.
yeah, and I just know, I thought it was last year's town meeting for those 3 properties on Queen Anne, but again, or was that 2 meetings ago now? It's all
We
blurred.
can talk about that offline, but
Yeah.
he's got a
And
valid point.
I can probably find the history.
Yeah.
I'll look at it.
Okay.
So, happy to throw a wrench into your plan.
Well, that's okay, we can just cross that one off, I guess. I don't think we have any other way to pay for it, but that's okay. Well, but we want to do it the right way, so. And then I would just mention the 60,000 on there is, comes through the school assessment for the school project for the dehumidification at the elementary school.
Can I run with that one too,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair? And I know neither one of you are here with this discussion either. And I'm not saying we have the funds available in free cash, but that was one of the things I talked to the schools about last year during our conversation with them, was the potential of doing some of these capital plans through free cash rather than through assessment, right? Because now all of a sudden it becomes an assessment, and maybe that assessment goes away, or maybe it doesn't in the future. So that's one thing, if we can at least explore potentially, rather than having, because that's a $60,000 savings off the assessment that we're currently trying to figure out how we afford it. Again, I'm not sure what's exactly available in your budget, but with all that said, and I'm not the person to make the decision on this, but I'm happy to at least throw it out there and sound like an idiot. One of the things we talked about previously as well was on any of their borrowings. Now, I think they have a pretty good bond rating as well as an entity. However, I think in the letter we received from the chair of the school board is that 1% of their overall increase is related to the borrowing for the school, for the middle school, right? So is there any logic, and again, maybe I'm off on a sailboat somewhere, is there any logic to the town doing the borrowing instead of the school? So that we take that debt separately than the assessment, right? Because the assessment's coming right out of our general obligation, right? Where if we borrowed it, wouldn't that be independent of?
So I'm not 100%, I mean, for this particular one,
We
for
don't
the
own
bigger
that
one, I think the problem would be is part of that belongs to Chatham.
Yeah, we don't own that building.
No, agreed, but so because we don't own the building, we can't do it, or we couldn't just borrow, and again, I'll just use a foolish number, but the project's, $1 million, we can't borrow the $800,000 from the town and give it to them?
In terms of what our piece of that's gonna
Yeah.
be gaming? Yeah, I don't know the answer
don't
to
know the
that.
answer
I
off
mean,
the
we
top of my
can-
head.
Again, I just, something to kick down the road. We're not trying to decide that tonight, but
Right.
does it help the town on the assessment side if we just give them the $800,000 rather than them borrowing it and adding 1% to their bottom line? You know, because next year there'll be another 1% for the roof.
Right,
So,
yeah, they keep coming.
right,
Yeah, okay, we'll have to
yeah.
research that.
And in the end, it may not make any sense, but
Right.
I think it's worth at least exploring.
Okay.
You math minds. Good point. Mark?
Tony, I have several questions on the I'm not gonna go into the other years, the 2027 budget.
Yep.
I'm gonna start off.
Budget or the capital budget?
The capital plan, I'm
budget,
sorry.
yep.
We're gonna replace 2 or 3 police cruisers.
Mhm.
Formerly, those would be transferred down for other departments would use. Now, apparently that, because of the green communities, that's not being done this year, and it's costing, I mean, at least in terms of the capital plan, we've got a $160,000 bill because what we've done in the past is not being done now. What happened? Why is that? It's like an unfunded mandate. You know, we've been a green community for a while, we've done the pass downs, now this year, apparently we're not, and I just wanna know why, because there is a real cost factor.
Yeah, so as it relates to the green communities, the police vehicles or public safety vehicles are exempt, right, from the requirements that they impose on green communities if you're buying, say, an inspection vehicle for the building department or something like that. And because they're exempt, once they have, reached their useful life, say, in the police department, now you're taking an exempt vehicle and trying to place it in, whether it's in the, replace the inspection vehicle, or if you're gonna send it to DNR or somebody else that might need a vehicle, you basically are, violating your sort of green community agreement by doing that, because now you're taking an exempt vehicle and putting it in a non-exempt function. And if you remember, when we got our green community report several months ago, if you remember, there was a notation on there, we took a hit, because at some point, I think we just did it anyways. So I think you could run the risk, if we do that too often, that, I don't know if they've ever taken green community status away from somebody, but it could be problematic when we're applying for green community grants and things like that, if we're, viewed as, sort of non-compliant in what we agree to in our green communities agreement, right, to not do stuff, like that. I think also, police vehicles, most of these are SUV-type vehicles. And even though we've handed some down, they're not always necessarily appropriate for the function. For instance, DNR needs a vehicle, right, because the one they have is literally to the point that it's not safe to even operate and drive. But now you're taking an SUV vehicle and giving it to a department that really requires more of a pickup truck type of a vehicle, because of the stuff they're carrying in the back or whatever. You wouldn't want it in the back seat behind you. So sometimes it's an appropriateness issue, but as it relates to green community, it's more about making sure we're living within the agreement that we all signed up for as a community. So that runs counter to that, so you get penalized.
Just a follow-up to that question, along those lines. Department of Natural Resources, $80,000 for a truck. Now that's, to me, that's roughly equivalent to an F-250 and F-350. DNR, for the past 2 people, they don't tow, they don't haul. And per the green communities, from what I read, you're kind of obligated to get energy-efficient vehicles. They probably would like you to get a plug-in. But on that particular department, because of what I have seen, what they need is, you could probably get a truck that has all-wheel drive, could be a hybrid, that meets what the green community wants for half that price. For example, a Ford Maverick. Along that same vein, the Harbor Master, he has a brand-new F-250 that they will use to do all the heavy work there. They have it, and I realize what goes on. They have it hired to cover things. But at most, he probably needs an F-150 or a Ranger. And the point is, if we're following the green communities, we should be buying the most energy-efficient vehicles, but that can fulfill the purpose for what that particular department needs. So I would just posit that DNR could probably go a lot smaller in a vehicle. And I had spoken to John. because I said, this is like an F-250 or F-350. He says, no, an F-150 would do. And probably cut the cost in half. So that's just something I bring up, and if I may, I'd like to continue on that. I do have a question on the harbor master. I've spoken about the vehicle. I'm just going to get on the line. Allen Harbor jetty replacement, that's out in 2029.
Are you looking at the overall plan, or are you still on the budget?
I'm looking at this big plan here,
Okay, I have to get that one. Hold on.
and I'm sorry, I can,
That's okay.
and I'll just bring this up. The Allen Harbor jetty replacement, that's $3 million in a few years. We have enough time to discuss this, but that's about 70% private use, that harbor. And I know they had a betterment thing in that harbor before, when people had their private docks dug out. It's just something for us as a board to consider as we go forward. You don't have to answer that, but that's something that very few people in the town can use. It's mostly 70% private, but that's not that there. Here's the big question: $425,000 for Sequatucket Harbor boat. And I've spoken to John about this. He's going to go from two boats to one.
Mm-hmm.
This didn't follow the cap plan that most other large purchases do. Normally, you'll have 3 or 4 out years to go. From what I understand, it's similar to what the Coast Guard uses for their rescue boats. I just question, I don't think the previous harbor master would not have put something on the capital plan if it was unsafe. So, especially with the tight budget, we have a 2014 Easterner down there that the previous harbor master used, and didn't plan on replacing. So I question that expense, especially that it was just brought up this year. The definition sheets on it don't really go into what type of boat it is, et cetera, et cetera. So I do question that. The final thing, Long Pond boat replacement. Just question, half of Long Pond is in Brewster. We're all into sharing of expenses. I just wonder, and this is probably going to be beyond your tenure, why are we going to pay $75,000? We should at least explore Brewster going in on it with us. Unless we're, are we responding to every call in for Long Pond, where half that pond is in Brewster? I have one last thing I'd like to say. We have $1 million in this year for engineering for the DPW mechanical workshop design, and $11 million following year to build a DPW workshop.
Mm-hmm.
I was on the capital plan. I approved that. Outlay committee. What's that? Capital outlay. And I approved that in part because of a safety reason. The fumes from that area can go into the office area, and I approved it. I would just, whether we cancel it for this year or hold it off till the town administrator comes in, I would like to look at consolidating the DPW buildings. If this gets built, we'll have 3 DPW buildings up in the disposal area. The main DPW building, this proposed building, and the disposal building. Consolidating them into one building. There's some very valuable property where the DPW is located now. You have Barrows Construction, one of the fastest growing companies, Pine Harbor Wood Products. I'd like to have the new town administrator, who has built a new DPW garage, look at the feasibility of a new DPW garage that will consolidate all these 3 facilities and, really bring us more into the future. So those are the things I had, and I just hope you'll consider that.
Yeah, I think related to, DNR and certainly Harbor, I think it would be beneficial to have them come in. The way I typically look at that, it's requirements-based, right? So I'm all for, fuel-efficient vehicles and particularly looking at small, but I think they need to explain the requirements, right? So when we had our capital outlay committee, meetings and presentations, they obviously all came in. And it really should be requirements-based and not, you know, either driven by green communities or whatever, we should determine, okay, what are the requirements? So, you know, a Ford Maverick is a lot different than a Ford F-150, right? So I think we need to hear about what the requirements are, what they actually, you know, plan to do with the vehicle. They covered all that when they came to Capitola, so I can't regurgitate that because I don't remember. And I think the same thing with John Harker and the Harbor Master, right? Harbor Masters are different, they come from different backgrounds, you know, new set of eyes. I think some of the things, when we asked them everybody to take a look at, you know, the last five-year capital plan, as they looked at the new one, you have a fresh set of eyes. Just like me coming in, fresh set of eyes, I'm sure there were things I proposed that the prior administrator, you know, may have thought differently or done differently. So if the board wants to have further discussion on that, I think it would be best to have them come in and kind of answer those, you know, specific questions. Certainly the DPW facility and, you know, we did a new one in Bourne, was prior to me getting there, but certainly we can look at the consolidation of that. You're typically gonna probably be looking at $20+ million to do that. So I think getting an assessment of the current DPW building and what its current, you know, uses are, how much useful life is left in, the same with the transfer station building. The other building they're looking at building is just a metal building. I know it's a lot of money when I you know, looked at, okay, what are you actually building? And it's more for storage, to have a facilities area and things like that. So if you're gonna build one comprehensive DPW facility, I think you wanna get that assessment to determine whether a $20 million expenditure for a brand-new, complete DPW and doing away with the other three, or does it make sense based on their useful life and condition right now to do them as separate? I don't know the answer to those things, so I can certainly talk to them about that, and with the new administrator coming in, if he's got some direct experience with what a new, you know, DPW, you know, looks like, how big it needs to be, and what the cost of that is certainly an exercise that's worth pursuing, just so we're making the best, you know, decisions long-term for their operation as well as the, you know, the finances for the town if we get into a $20+ million, you know, borrowing and in context with everything else we're doing, would be a worthwhile, but it's an exercise, right, to look at all that. So I appreciate those comments. So do you want me to have, you know, John come in one of the next meetings and?
It's on here for the tracker.
Okay, and Stephanie as well, and they can talk to those couple of things. I know the boat issue is really, you know, one of functionality, right, and requirements driven for what they need to do, and doing away with 2 boats that today don't meet those requirements, and it's becoming more of what they do as we work with other partners in search and rescue and some of the other things they get called to do. So I will put that on their calendar either next week or the week prior to come in and do that. So is that helpful? Yeah. Okay.
Just real quickly, so, Tony, sticking on the DPW building.
Yeah.
The $1 million, and I'm just reading the shorthand, design and engineering. So is that essentially, we're gonna, in this theory, we tell them what we wanted and they would design and engineer it for us?
And the construction costs give you a good cost estimate. Prior to this, what was in for 27 was $9 million to actually build it. Now, what I have generally seen is, if you go to town meeting and ask for that type of money without that engineering cost estimate and design, it gets a lot more scrutiny, because you don't necessarily have a fully baked plan to show them. And so typically, what I have done is you start with engineering and design, so that when you go to town meeting, you have a good idea of what that building is gonna cost. We have renderings, people can look at it and see what it you know, looks like, smells like, tastes like, and you have a good idea of the construction cost estimate. So, because if you don't do that, you could say, oh, it's $9 million, and then you get approval, and then you go to put it out for design and engineering, it comes back at $12 million, right? And now you don't have enough money. And so it's really trying to line these things up in a logical manner. Typically, engineering design is about 1% of the cost of the project. That's where the $1 million comes in.
What I wasn't sure of is, would it incorporate, to Mark's point, almost a space study, right? So, a space use study. So, we asked them, we have 3 buildings. Would it make sense for us to go down to 1, and what's the cost associated with it? What are the pros and cons of doing that? And of course, with Link's input and his team. So again, I just didn't know if that was part of the thought process. So rather than remove the million, almost enhance the scope of what we want them to do.
For options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to Mark, you know, I wish the $80,000 was for a 250 or a 350. In today's world, that is a 150, which is crazy, but that's the going rate. And especially when, you know, they need to outfit them a little bit for the intended purpose, but,
Yeah, there's radios and some
yeah,
other things.
yeah. So, anyway, they're getting expensive.
You ought to know.
No. Perhaps.
Okay.
No, I'm good, thank you.
And I'm going to flip the script entirely, because this is a conversation that you and I had like 6 months ago, made total sense to me, and people need to understand the thought process here. It's aligned with one of my favorite top 10 subjects, when everything's important, nothing's important. So with that, we've been thinking linearly for years, getting updates on the procurement queue, and where's this, and where's that? And you had the stunning revelation that if something was a super priority, and it had to happen, and then you get a quarterly status report and it hasn't happened, and another quarterly report and it hasn't happened, and another quarterly report and it hasn't happened. I think the time is right to start looking at, you know, is everything still needed that we thought was really urgent we couldn't live without? And there are things that are out there that are like that.
Yes, and Jen, just today, sent a very comprehensive report to all the department heads with the list of all those things that you just mentioned. So that now we're gonna start picking away at closing out some of those that are, I'll call it the latent articles, and some of those are 3, 4, 5 years and haven't even been initiated yet. Or
Yeah.
more.
And it has a second-order consequence, because it plugs the line up for things that you want to get done when you say, well, we still have to do this first. We only have the hands we have to be able to do these procurements, and to the extent that they're sitting in line and we don't even know whether we want them. It's a good idea. Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and then, you know, to go along with that is, as we know, inflation and all of that, what you run into is the cost estimates that drove the amounts on those articles that are 4, 5, 6 or more years old, you know, probably aren't worth the paper that they're written on. And so even if you tried to execute it, you probably couldn't, because you don't have enough money in today's market for whatever it was you were going to do, what it's gonna cost today. So this is part of the, I won't say cleaning house, but essentially it's cleaning house to go back and, you know, there are several $1 million or more in open articles for various things that have accumulated over time. And so we're starting to queue those up to pick away at those and either repurpose them to help fund what's on here, or in some cases it may be ones that we close out and return to free cash. That'll help us in future capital budgets and other things that we use free cash for. So we're trying to generate those from within, just like we should, in terms of making sure we're doing everything as efficiently and appropriately as we can with the money that we've been allocated over the years, so.
Okay. Moving along.
Okay. All right, so takeaways from this, we'll have some folks come in to give a little bit more on that. We'll research the sinking fund in terms of making sure that that use is appropriate, and we'll continue to look and study the idea of potentially, you know, utilizing, you know, or leveraging our bond rating over perhaps what the school does, if there's a way to legally do that, and perhaps, you know, save the town a little bit of money in how we fund those capital projects and things related to schools.
Appreciate that.
Okay. All right.
Okay, the ATA, Assistant Town Administrator recruitment. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, so update on the Assistant Town Administrator recruitment. If you remember, before we have taken the Assistant Town Administrator out of the personnel bylaw, it'll be an executive contract. We determined the salary range for that. We had everything queued up, and we decided to wait until we had our name and our face of our next town administrator. So I coordinated with Jay McGrill last week. I sent him everything just to make sure he was good with the new job description, the advertisement, the flyer. He loved it, said everything was good. So with with all that, we're planning on getting that on the street tomorrow or Wednesday. He's going to socialize that out at MMA when he's there Thursday, Friday, and part of Saturday. We're putting it out, I think, for 45 days. So by the time he gets here, we will have resumes, cover letters, all that stuff ready to go for him to review and look at and hopefully find an A-quality candidate for him to bring in as his assistant town administrator. So that process is kicking off.
That's great.
I just have a question.
Sure.
The previous assistant town administrator handled HR and procurement.
Mhm.
Now, from what I understand, Tony, we have two people in-house who are being trained or trying to be procurement officers. In addition, we have an HR person.
Correct.
So I just questioned if the total need for an assistant town administrator. There may be a hybrid need. I spoke to the incoming town administrator. He talked about a grants person. So I'm just, I just don't know what the load, what it was before has been reduced quite a bit. I don't know how much it was, maybe 20%, 30%, I don't really know. But I think that's worth looking at before we, just before we hire somebody at a high salary. What are her job, his or her job requirements gonna be? Especially without the HR portion of it or the procurement portion of it. So I just put that out there.
Let me
go
handle
ahead.
that for a second. I talked with Jay. I think he needs to come in and have this conversation with all of us, so you can ask that to him directly. But my assumption is, he looked at what's going on, and it obviously was assignment-based, if you will. He was looking to this position because there's a ton of direct reports that go to the town administrator. He was looking at a partner to do things policy-wise in execution, rather than, okay, you got to do this stuff, and this stuff to support your job description. So I'd kind of like to delay this conversation until he can describe what it is he's thinking of using it as, if that sounds reasonable. Because he's not here. So before we act something that he's anticipating happening, he might want to be able to defend what he's doing.
Yeah.
Well,
Hello, Richard.
if I could briefly, we can have the discussion, and it's a good point, Mark. If I recall during the interview process, Jay alluded to the importance of that position. I did ask, because he offered that up, I didn't have to ask him that question, but I did ask one of the other candidates who kind of said, perhaps, we could evaluate the need. But as far as the job description, we hammered that out, with the assistance of Tony. And so that would be something that, and Tony just alluded to, he shared that with Jay, and Jay thought it was good. So we'd either have to revisit that job description in the short term so that we can get it posted, or withhold posting now and wait for Jay to come on board and then post after we have that discussion. We're not gonna have that discussion as a board with Jay until he's sitting over here.
But I don't think it's as egregious as that. We can post it. That doesn't guarantee that somebody, when the music stops, sitting in a chair, we offer them a contract and we're good. We could evaluate that as we go along and walk and chew gum. So I'd say post it. I mean, there's no downside to that.
Well, other than if the job description changes, but.
That's the only downside.
Right.
Otherwise, you're burning time.
Right, no, agreed.
Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As a member of the Charter Commission, we have been now serving for 9 months. And one of the major discussions has been, as we look at the charter, the direct reports to the town administrator. We're discussing, basically, for the last 9 months, a strong TA community. Whereas some of the things that right now may be done by the select board may be transferred over to the town administrator. And that some of the requirements and responsibilities of the town administrator, allowing the select board to have, as one of our visitors talked about, white space and the ability to think at a higher level, some of the things you're talking about tonight. But within the next year, we'll be going to town meeting with a potential charter that has more responsibility for town administrator, which would lend the idea of an assistant town administrator taking some of that responsibility away and some of that responsibility away from the select board so they can think at a higher plane and higher level of policy for the community.
And as we careen down the road at 90 miles an hour here with this discussion, the one question I would have is, so you've had a voted position on that, huh?
We're just discussions, and that's why we
That's my point.
encourage everybody to please watch the Charter Commission, and we've invited, and many of you have come and met with us. The town administrator has come to meet with us. We've just sent a letter out in the last week to past select board members for the past 20 years to come meet with us, because we're looking for as much input as we can to make this a better community to live.
And just as a coda to all of this, that has been a real source of discussion in the community for years. How strong do you want to let the town administrator get, or encourage the town administrator to get? So it's a really big discussion. I'm glad we're having it tonight. They really need to have the conversation, because that may be a sticking point, depending on whether the committees will go through appointment process with the town administrator, because in the extreme, a town manager can do that. And how much or how little do we have faith in putting all our eggs in one basket? It's a big discussion. The public really needs to be part of it.
And that's why it's a great opportunity to invite people to either come to or watch the Charter Commission meetings Thursday nights at 6:30 here at Town Hall or at the Community Center. They are available to be watching on the Harwich Channel as well.
I gave you your PSA moment.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
So, where are we?
We're still,
I would,
what do you want to do?
well, it's,
What's the elemental
I won't
question?
be here. I guess
Plural.
I would not recommend putting this on the street if it's gonna change. I think it's gonna cause more damage than good, because we're gonna have a job description, we're gonna have a salary range. If we turn around and change all that after, people have applied for the position. When we had this discussion, I think, notwithstanding what we just heard, we elevated that position. A lot of times, assistant town administrator, when I got to Ashland, they were the assistant town administrator, they HR, they were it becomes a dumping ground, if you will, for things that we don't have, right? By the time I left, we had a finance director, we had an HR department, right? Because those are independent, professional tracks and things that need to happen versus being an additional duty. And so we rewrote that job description to really structure the assistant town administrator to be part of the executive leadership team for the town, so that we can make big gains on some of the things that I think have been, sort of a pain in our backside. We haven't really made a lot of progress, and allows the town administrator to, divide some of that responsibility. And we also looked at decentralizing procurement. It's very unusual and I've never seen it, that entire function is centralized in the corner office suite that you have, and that's probably part of the reason we have this huge backlog of projects, because there's a lot of work that goes into that. So part of it was to decentralize, get additional people their MCPPO certification, so that we could decentralize some of the procurement activity. Now, the office still retains the chief procurement responsibility, right? Jay McGrail has his MCPPO, right, and can function as the chief procurement officer, but that's more to provide oversight to make sure that all the activity that's happening in the decentralized, because eventually those contracts will run through their office to the select board for final approval, so they have direct oversight to make sure that happens. So we reworked that job description with all those elements that we all had a chance to opine on and adjust, and we took votes to do certain things. So if we're gonna change course and you want the new town administrator to have, to weigh in on some of that, I would recommend you wait. But there's, say, some danger in that too, because I can tell you there's a lot of stuff that's, falling off the desk down there just because of the amount of work. So you got a new person coming in that's gonna, try to get up to speed with, again, an office that's not fully staffed. So happy to do whatever the board wishes, but I would be cautious of putting it out if you think you're really gonna make a significant change in its job description or salary range or whatever.
Me personally, I'm not anywhere near that yet. and straddling the discussion that Mr. Waystat just had, there's two ways of looking at this thing. And irrespective of whether it's a strong town manager or a town administrator, we have not been particularly good at team building through the years. And it is kind of really important that one of the team members, Jay, weighs in on what he's seeing as a vision for how to utilize that position so that we can decide as a policy whether we do or don't agree with him. So that's missing. I don't think we're wasting a lot of time, but I think it's a conversation that's well worth having, is why are we doing it? It's not ask and vote. It's really like, how do we see this thing working? How is it going to make his life easier? How is it going to make us assured that things are happening that need to happen? And it's a high-order discussion that I think he needs to be part of. I mean, it's just my thought. I think that's not hard to have as a conversation over the next couple of weeks. We've already waited a couple of months, really. I'm not sure that we changed what we did, to be honest with you. Because in summary, he said he's not looking for a task-generated person. He's looking for a partner that divvies up things, that is part of the team. And you're right, there are things, don't be beguiled. We spent 6 months putting Humpty Dumpty back together again, but that doesn't mean we've been doing everything that we would have done if we had a person in that job. So it's just my basic thinking about how you handle this. He's coming in, he's got a clean sheet of paper, we've made some action. I think it's the right action, but we'll know when we all hear it. Does that sound reasonable?
I don't know that I totally understand as far as, so you're recommending that we hold off on this until he comes on board?
Not necessarily. I mean, if it turns out, I talked to him this week because we just hired him. He wasn't a contract employee at that point. If I ask him, what do you want to do? I can have an agenda item there that can say, at least for the time being, I'd like you to do the recruitment just the way you have it set up. Or, please wait. It's a binary thing. It's 1 week.
So in other words, we're going to wait 1 week to
I'm
talk
not
to
saying
him?
I don't have that
No.
authority. If we want to, we can wait 1 week. I could call him, ask him for which direction he'd like to go. Keep the job description, make the recruitment happen right now, or I can wait for a week to ponder this and give you my thoughts on it.
Well, obviously, I think I've already tipped my hand in the sense that we went through this exercise, with the assistance of Tony. I think we got ourselves to a good spot. Regardless of what goes on with the charter committee, and all due respect to those folks, I'm operating in today's world, and we'll deal with those changes if and when they come. Again, this is a vote of the townspeople. In the end, there may be no change. But more importantly, I think Tony sent the information to Jay to get his input. Jay expressed, and I take Tony at face value, he expressed his pleasure with what he read and what he saw, and was looking for us to move forward on this. So I'm comfortable moving forward, but clearly it's the pleasure of the entire board.
What I recommend then, so move this thing off the dime, the only element that's missing is an instruction from us to say, put that thing out. So a motion would be in order to test what the sentiment of the board is, to say,
Yeah,
go ahead and recruit, or
No, agreed. I was just giving folks my opinion, so,
right. No.
put a motion out there.
perfect.
May I ask one more question?
Yeah.
So Jay has given his input on what we plan to put out on the street, and he's in agreement with that?
Yes.
Still, we're in limbo. We haven't given any
So,
instructions at all.
Mr. Chair,
Just, thank you.
motion to allow the town administrator to post for the assistant town administrator recruitment with the job description as previously approved by this board.
Second,
So moving seconded to go forward with the recruitment with the previously approved job description. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
aye,
opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. And thank you for coming, Brendan. So we have, let me just go back to the very beginning here. We have a housing trust agreement that's filed with the Registry of Deeds. That was derivative of an action that was taken by town meeting in an article that approved things. The agreement that was actually drafted and approved with us, but there wasn't a whole hell of a lot of discussion at the board level. I believe when I looked at the actual YouTube of it, it was something like 2.5 minutes. Well, it was the same thing we did at town meeting. It was not. But broadly, we agreed to something, and the setup is what we kind of wanted. Now, there's a couple of things that that were unanticipated. The town meeting never actually said that the town administrator has to be the chair forever and ever, amen. So because of the way it's set up, because there's a designee involved also in that, it gets really murky, because essentially you could have a private citizen who forever, for as long as they feel like it, once they're designated as the representative of the town administrator, stay on that thing, and yet everybody else is subject to a 2-year renewal. That does not take a town meeting action. But the grave that we have to approve a change is that both the trust and the board cooperatively have to agree to whatever change we want to make. The low-hanging fruit is something pretty simple. I've talked with Tony, I've talked with you, Brendan, is if we were to change something really simple that says, as to reorganization, that it's consistent with the charter as it exists now, that every year at the meeting subsequent to the beginning of the fiscal year, the board shall meet and appoint from its members a chair, a vice chair, and a clerk. You still have the right to be able to appoint if the administrator is still part of that construct. But it makes it consistent with everything else that we do, that you organize every year by vote of the board, by its members. So nobody's instructing anybody to do anything other than consider, of the members, who do you want to be chair? That only takes a cooperation between us to alter the document. So, and how that looks, I'd be more than happy to work with you, because it's really a sentence. It's not huge. What can't be changed is there's different flavors under the state law. There's lots of different flavors. I mean, Falmouth elects its trust. There's all kinds of different ways of approaching this. I personally feel that we can discuss this, at its very basis, it's a wise idea to have the involvement of the town administrator, because there is a need to make sure the town administrator knows what's going on and potentially could direct resources that are under the aegis of the town administrator to be able to cooperate to help to do stuff. And they need to know what's going on then. The state law does not, it says the town administrator may, with a vote or without, essentially, I'm just summarizing it, be a member of that. So it's may and maybe with a vote or without a vote. We did vote at a town meeting to place the town administrator as one of the 5 people. So irrespective of who becomes chair, that's a whole separate discussion. That only happened when we actually executed the trust document. It was not part of the town meeting article. But it was part of the town meeting article, and it would take a town meeting action to do something, for instance, like there'll be 5 members, we appoint them, they have 2-year terms, and there is a 6th person who's a non-voting ex officio member who is the town administrator, who will always be that. That's a possibility too, but that's a discussion that you folks also have to feel comfortable with. I'm not trying to impose anything on anybody, but I don't get the impression, talking with Jay, he wants to get involved with this either, because it's fraught with danger. You have 2 different organizations. You may want to do something that we don't want to do. And then who does the town administrator actually listen to? Because you're actually leveraging them. They've got 2 sets of bosses in that role. I get the impression that he absolutely wants to do what Tony does, which means that every single time something happens with a town administrator, you got to get him to make an appointment that we would confirm, and it's clunky. As you've pointed out, I mean, you have gaps where you're not sure whether you have 5 members or not, because it takes time for that process. I'm sure that he would want to do what Tony did, put out an advertisement, hey, I'm looking for somebody to act in my stead, can you apply? And so you're chewing up time, you're chewing up continuity. It's a question of, can you bring that back to the Housing Trust to see, because like I said, the reorganization part is real simple, we only have to agree. But we're at the point now where we got articles for the town meeting. And I want to be able to establish continuity. I mean, there's no reason why we can't, and there's no reason other than just a piece of paper that says he has to be there, and it has to be a vote, he has to be the chair, and he has to designate somebody if he doesn't want to be there. If that all sounds reasonable, I see Mr. Ballantyne is sitting there in my top right corner
He's on mute.
without a microphone on, I might add, Larry.
I'll let Larry go first if he wants to. Can I come up?
Yeah, sure. Larry Brendan's here, he's approaching, and we can't hear you. So you want to start off with Brendan and listen to what he's saying first, and then I'll see if you can resolve your microphone problem? A nod would do. Are you even hearing me? Well, we'll start with Brendan.
So quick question first. Regarding the bylaw, I would assume that would have to be changed. So what goes first? Because the bylaw reads, one who shall be the town administrator or designee.
They have to,
They're actually
One
taking
can
that
happen without
one of
the
the
other.
five.
you're right. That has to be a town meeting action, it has to change that.
Yeah,
But there's nothing in there that mandates in the bylaw that the town administrator is always the chair.
that's easy to do on the trust side.
That's what I'm saying. There's
That's
two
easy
things
to do.
happening. So,
Right, but it does say the town administrator will be one of the five.
yes,
So-
that does take an action, and we are in the point of drafting articles for this town meeting. So it's a pertinent conversation. Do you
Yeah.
want to just get an opinion from Jay, for instance, about, well, I'd like to be on it. I don't really want to vote. I just want to make sure that everything's going on the way I want it to go on. So I'm going to be on there ex officio, but I don't vote, which gives you 5 members always.
And what about the opinion from KP Law that breaks down, they give a suggestion how to amend the bylaw and then the steps for the trust would take afterwards? So,
Yeah, no,
very simple.
yeah, it's pretty simple.
Yeah, it seems like that's a clear path as far as,
I think we've been fighting
the
about
bylaw
nothing-
first, and
something
then-
that isn't anything, really.
yeah, it seems like the bylaw first, and then we can amend the trust docs. And then it comes back to you for a signature, and then we register it at the deeds.
It's a matter of goodwill. That's why you're here. I mean, I don't want to impinge on
It
what you
seems
guys are
pretty
doing.
straightforward, yeah. It seems like maybe the town administrator should not be involved as much, and I like that option as well, so whatever you think is best. I mean, how busy the town administrator is going to be, and should they be in this role, and is there time? So that's always been a concern as well, so if you think that's best.
Yeah, clearing all the smoke from the room, you
Yeah.
know that I'm extremely supportive of what you're doing, and
Mm-hmm.
that it's a necessary thing, and we're having our attention diverted all the time to form instead of what's going on in the actual trust.
Agreed.
I'm not sure what Larry is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Can't see you. Oh, there you are. You're now on the left corner.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you, Brendan. We do plan to put this on our next meeting's agenda to discuss, because Brendan and I have talked and other,
Oh, good Lord.
I didn't turn them up and I just froze it.
We just ghosted you.
We're like, okay, Larry, you can talk, never mind.
Well, that's one way of speeding up the meeting. It's Larry's portrait.
Go ahead, Larry.
I don't know what's going on now. Can you hear me?
That's okay, neither do we.
If you can hear me, Don, we're going to put this on our agenda next meeting.
Yeah, and you and I have talked too. I mean, I'm trying to do this so that we're all moving in the same direction cooperatively. I mean, really.
Yeah, and I think we are. You've heard Brendan, I think it's not that complicated to work out, and we'll do it.
Okay. I'll leave it at that then, assuming the board members agree. We'll just have them hear what we said, and respond to it, and see how much or how little we want to
And you
do.
take care of the bylaw, and then we can
Yeah,
amend the trust.
we can still
document.
draft something while we're pondering. I mean,
Yeah,
so-
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, whatever you think is best.
Yes, and we should.
okay. Just
Okay,
want
so-
everybody on record that way.
So what is that gonna look like now in terms of the?
It's an article that just
No, I know
unwinds-
that, but what's the meat of it? We're gonna have a six-member trust, five members and,
5 voting members, 1 ex officio, who
Officio.
will always be the town administrator.
okay.
And the other thing that doesn't require the action is, and they will organize each year annually, according to the charter, at the first meeting after the beginning of the year, with a chair or vice chair and a clerk from amongst their members.
So that's going to be added into the bylaw.
That won't be added in the bylaw, that'll be a change to the trust
Okay, to the
document.
trust.
But Brendan's right, why would you file a new trust document when you still have one thing that you haven't decided on? So do the bylaws.
Bylaw seems to be first.
Yeah.
All right, so the change of the bylaw is just related to the makeup.
Yep.
Okay.
And I can assure you, understanding state law, because Larry and I go back a number of years with having that high-order discussion about how a trust under the law could look. There are many different
Right.
possibilities. This is one of those. It never mandated that the town administrator had to be a member, or that it had to be a voting member, or that they had to be a chair. Those were all decisions that we made. And they were all perfectly legal, but how wise they were, another question.
And then Tony, the town of West Newbury has a great example of that.
Can
So
you send that to me?
Yeah, I can send it to you. Sure.
Okay, great.
They're doing 7 members
Yeah,
in ex
and-
officio, but
And if I may, one of our neighbors, I forget, it's either Orleans or Brewster, has a similar makeup.
Yes. So again, the only purpose of having
I can
this here
send you
is to
that as well.
clarify who's going to do what and when. So if you're going to have that on a meeting, terrific, and we'll move forward together.
sounds
Okay.
great.
Any questions? Or?
No, I guess, so what they're having on their meeting is if they want to change the language, bring back the town meeting.
Yeah, and that absolutely requires both sides to agree. That much we all agree to is the way the state law
Well, I
writes.
think the bylaws really,
Yeah.
we don't have much to do with that.
We're not going to touch much of it. It's just
Yeah, I
that.
think you just take out the town administrator and ex officio, 1 extra member, keep it simple, and you could change the selectmen to the select board, you could change that language while you're
No.
doing it.
But I don't have that power,
no.
and we don't have that power by ourselves.
So, correct, yeah, but someone has to,
Well, I'm not sure, we may, I don't want to get down that road. My point is, the thing, the agenda item you folks are going to have is to support the bylaw amendment?
correct.
Okay, and then down the road, we can look at the next step.
A language change that's collateral to that, that doesn't take any action other than us agreeing
Correct,
together.
okay,
And once the bylaws change, then we'll update the trust docs and then back to the registry of deeds.
understood, okay.
And we just need us to vote for that first, and it comes back here, and then it goes to the registry of deeds. There's no town meeting for that to update the docs, from my
Right,
understanding.
no, agreed. My only point, again, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, is the bylaw, we could propose independent of this, but we'd rather have.
But I don't wanna get to
full-
a town meeting
That's what I mean,
or-
I'd rather have full support. I'm not saying we can't, but I just wanted to clarify, so perfect, that sounds like, and when's your next meeting?
It's coming up February, I should know, I don't know.
It's okay.
But for a second.
I think it's February 12th, maybe?
Yeah, February 12th.
It's the second,
Second
it's the
Monday.
second Monday, it's the second Monday of the month.
But to your point, Mr. Chair, we don't need to wait for that, we can start creating the
Yeah.
language now.
Yep,
I just wanted everybody to know what we were doing.
Yep,
yeah, it sounds great.
Okay. That's all I wanted out of this. So,
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Larry.
Yeah.
All right. Contracts.
Okay, so in your packet, we have a contract for the board to sign for the fiscal year 2026 police vehicle purchase of 2 police cruisers. Those come off the state contract list that was negotiated by the MAPC, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. There's a memo in your packet from the chief, as well as the contract for the purchase of the vehicles.
Discussion or motion?
for the purpose of discussion, a motion to approve the contract with Colonial Ford Inc., DBA Colonial Municipal Group, for the purchase of 2 police cruisers in the amount of $134,953.60.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to go forward for discussion. We have the chief here.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
My question is, I'm reading the article, or what I assume was the article, and this was for the purchase of these 2 cruisers, right? And it was for the amount of $210,000, so that balance will not be borrowed or be returned back to the town.
So
Because this is $135,000, call it.
I can answer that pretty simply. Good evening, Kevin Constantine, Police Chief. So the article is for 3 cruisers. We're only presenting 2 tonight. We're working on 1 more. So that article should have been for 3.
Okay. And I'm just looking at what's in the procurement checklist for approval in our packet, that's all. So
Yeah.
it very well may be.
So, yeah, so 3 vehicles, the price was always fluctuating depending on what Green Communities was telling us between hybrids and gas model. Hybrids are a lot more expensive than gas model. So we'll be coming back to you eventually with 1 more for this current fiscal year. And on the Green Communities discussion on these cruisers, these are 2 marked police cruisers. Although we are exempt, we are meeting, and it is my goal to meet the Green Communities fuel efficiency portion of their policy, which these do. And I just want to put it out there as far as hybrids go in the police world. I've been asked a lot of questions about them, and when people see this come up, I will tell you that the town of Falmouth and the town of Yarmouth were told to say, go out and buy hybrid police cruisers. So they were told by their committees or their green communities to go out and buy those. They did. In the last 2 or 3 years, they've had half their fleet out for over a year based on major issues with hybrid vehicles in the police world.
Glad I was sitting down, Kevin, thank you.
Yes, yes, right? Shocker to everybody.
Right.
These vehicles get used, they get abused. They're not your standard, driving around town hybrid vehicles. And Ford actually stopped producing them last year to try to fix their issues. So that's what we've been kind of working on and looking at. I am not comfortable buying them right now at all for our use, so that's where we're at now. The other good news I have on these vehicles, I mean, you see the price per is 44 and change. The upfit is 22,000 per vehicle. So there's a lot of equipment in these vehicles as opposed to admin vehicles. However, we're finally getting to the point of having all model year vehicles. Remember, Ford changed these vehicles about 4 or 5 years ago, made them a foot wider, which forced us to buy all new equipment for them because nothing fit in them. We are finally able to get to the point, except for 1 cruiser after this purchase, that we will have those type of cruisers where we can then transfer this very expensive equipment back into new car, drastically cutting down the pricing in the future.
Anybody need an old cage?
Got plenty of them.
Plastic rear seat.
Before you go anywhere,
We see the plastic.
don't sit down yet. Just so everybody's on the same page here, there is the policy thing that we appear, that we think we have to ascribe to, but let's strip this back to, this thing has a need, and whatever we get has to fit that need. It can't just be designed because somebody said we'd like to have something. And the higher order discussion is, we have 34 square miles of property in this town that you folks have to patrol, including Hawks Nests and everything, so they really get beat up. So we're looking for operational guidance about what would fit what you're doing first, before we start worrying about whether, somebody's gonna get mad at us for buying something, this or that. It has to be something we actually wanted. So I think
Yes.
everybody needs to know that.
Yeah, and in fact, we have, a lot of four-wheel drive vehicles for that purpose, right? And we also have a pickup truck that we've had for many years that will eventually need replacing. We trailer a lot of heavy equipment, but we have to get to those areas. So I think, Green Communities is seeing that, especially in the police and fire world, and they're recognizing that with every memo they put out.
So again, your homework assignment in the future is to actually stay on this and give us some substantive recommendations about what it is that will fill what we really want and need.
I will not be shy to do that. Thank you.
Just real quickly, turnaround time for these?
Turnaround time fairly quickly.
Good.
Once we get the PO and get them the PO, I would say, no, quickly, I would say 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, which
That-
is,
that's quick.
that is quick, right?
That's quick.
We're not talking 2 to 3 years.
They're located, they have a satellite campus in Plymouth now, that's where they're upfitting. I go up there regularly to check on them, so that's pretty good. They're rebouncing a little.
Yeah, good, thank you.
You're welcome.
So what's the ask at this point, tonight?
Tonight, approve the 2 cruises on the agenda.
Okay, that's all I wanted to hear.
Thank you.
Motion and a second.
Okay, so that's what the chief would like to do. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
That's chief.
Okay, next up, finally, walked into this one.
Right.
Got
Early
it
on,
done.
Early on.
So in your packet is, for signature is the payment and maintenance agreement with St. Peter's Church for the grinder pump that they purchased versus getting one purchased by the town. So the payment and maintenance agreement was coordinated with legal and town council, and we've just been waiting to get the sewer use regulations approved. So that was a process between the Water and Wastewater Commissions, the town of Chatham, their select board operating as their wastewater sewer commissioners in that town. So we got all that squared away, and we now have the ability to reimburse St. Peter's in an amount of what it would have cost if the town had provided the grinder pump. So that total is in your packet at, I think, $6,270, I believe.
50 cents, yeah. Mr.
50
Chair?
cents.
And I feel compelled to ask this. They're okay with that?
Oh, yeah, they had been
That's
sent
all,
this
Jim.
way back in the summertime, actually, with the cost, and they've signed it, so.
Okay. Yes, please.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve a payment and maintenance agreement with St. Peter's Lutheran Church for grinder pump reimbursement incurred during the Phase 2 sewer construction project in the amount of $6,272.50.
Second.
I'm not going to repeat the motion. It's just to do the grinder pump. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Town Administrator's report.
Okay, just for situation awareness, I signed a contract for the Council on Aging for their newsletter printing. It's an annual contract for that, so just to let you know that. And 2 appointments to announce. One is Building Inspector Richard Valarelli is being appointed as one of our building inspectors. We've had a vacancy for several months from when the prior person met. He'll be starting here, I think, sometime in February. And then we also hired a part-time alternate wiring inspector, Dan Griffin, so he'll help filling in for the wiring inspector when he's not available, and to assist in our electrical inspection. So I made those 2 appointments.
Tony, that building inspector now bring them up to current staffing levels?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good news.
Quick question, if I may ask. How are things going with the new building department fees? Any feedback, any pushback?
No, I think, generally I've had a couple of questions just as they get used to the process, but nothing, I'll say, out of the ordinary that wasn't expected. But no, I haven't gotten any negative, feedback or anything, like that, so.
Okay, great.
Yep, so far so good.
Okay, we'll flip the script on this, too. Select Board member reports. Mark?
Nothing to report, other than that I've been sick, like everybody else, and laying low.
Anyone who is not in this room and has not been in this room for the last 3 weeks has made a wise decision, as the onset of plague has happened. Anita?
No, I don't have anything to report, thank you.
No, I think we sent Mr. Schiavi with enough homework already. No need to add on to it, thank you.
And I have nothing, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?